Hey, this is Mark A. Altman.
This is Darren Dochterman,
This is Ashley Miller.
and we are previously the Inglorious.
Trekspert guys.
And this is another strange new episode, the taking of season 1, 2, 3. And you're probably thinking, wait a second, you got chocolate in my peanut butter. What's going on? Another Strange New Worlds episode of the Treksperts? I thought you guys weren't really fans. And you know what?
Wait, I thought we were doing something different.
What?
I didn't think that was this episode.
What do you think we were doing?
I thought we were talking about the opening speech that Shatner does.
Risk is our business?
No, to seek out strange new life and worlds and things.
Oh, okay. Well, no, actually, a couple of weeks ago, we had some special guests on the show. We had showrunners KAY REINDL and Gabrielle Stanton, along with ZAZIE Sales, to talk about their love of all things Strange New Worlds, and because we realized that was not a show we could do, and so we brought in some people we really respect who love the show to share their passion and excitement over the show that I'm sure many of you share. It was delightful, and we got a great response. And so we thought perhaps we should do it again. Now, if you want an episode on our love of Andor, that's different. We will happily stick around for that. Have you guys been watching Alien Earth?
I have not. It's in my queue.
I watched the first episode.
Yeah, you didn't like it.
I don't like it.
Yeah, I watched the first episode, and the jury's still out for me. I actually, I'm so impressed by Fargo. Noah Hawley's show Fargo. I just think so brilliant, and it's funny because Alien, it was like very more traditional. Like there's some really weird quick cutting that I didn't think worked in the first act,
I think they're trying to do too many things at once. I mean, they're trying so desperately with the look of the show to make it look like the environment in the first Alien.
Mm-hmm.
But you need more than that to play around in this world, and I think that there's too many bits and pieces of ideas going on, and I'm trepidatious, but
That's
I'll
interesting.
watch a couple more.
Yeah, that's interesting because I felt the same way. I was so intrigued by the idea of the future is run by these mega corporations and exploring Weyland-Yutani and how Prodigy and all these different, but it kept jumping around between all these different stories, and it didn't sort of seamlessly, it didn't build. It just felt very disjointed. And I was surprised because I feel like, Noah Hawley has always been just so, on the money. I mean, Fargo was just such a brilliant adaptation of, not adaptation, inspired by the Coen Brothers movie, the way they've taken all these remarkable directions. And every season is completely different and, just
right. It's just a UFO, Ed. We got to go. I mean, it's like, look, I think Noah Hawley is an absolute genius. It's why it's, one of the reasons why it's in my queue is like I'm waiting for all of the episodes to be available and then to kind of watch it. But that's not just Fargo. Like he did Legion.
I thought visually I loved it. I was not as into Legion.
I loved the first season of Legion. I thought like the second season it was not nearly as awesome. But it's just you can't argue with the dude's imagination and his kind of out there point of view.
And like on paper, everything is exciting to me about Alien Earth. It was just the execution that was just a little off, I thought.
I think that the core of it is that it's such a cursory understanding and or description of the way big conglomerates work. It's sort of very, first grade level of that. And
yeah, I didn't find that at all.
Yeah, I just I think it's just sort of a wrapping paper around the whole thing, and I just don't believe anything in it.
I mean, go ahead.
I was gonna say that I saw something like this. I guess again I'm trying to stay away from spoilers, but I saw something online where somebody was sort of breaking down like, how people make alien movies now, and even it's Ridley Scott, and they're like talking about like all the metaphors for this and the metaphors for that and all that shit. And then you like cut to Jim Cameron. He says, "What if you tape a couple of guns together and you shoot a bunch of them in the face?"
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, you know what? That does sound about right to me.
It's like,
Well,
keep
that
it
is
simple.
funny.
Keep it simple. Let the metaphors find themselves.
Yeah.
Well, because if you look at the original Alien, it was a haunted house in space, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was scary as shit.
Yeah.
And that was it. And then, you start to see Ridley doing Prometheus and doing, trying to find all these layers to it. And not everything is that deep,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and
When
and
you
I know
start,
that
when you start with the mythology, you don't get to the nitty gritty.
Yeah. That's what
you're
we
just distracted. Yeah.
would call in the Terminator writers room about other shows like Heroes or Lost. Like at some point they jump up their own asshole.
Yeah.
And
It is.
that may be like, it
Which is
doesn't
not what
sound
the
great, does
alien
it?
does at all.
but this is a little overstuffed, but at the same point, the quality of production was exquisite.
Well, it
But
better
I
be.
will
It's expensive as hell.
Yeah, well, that's true. But at the same time, I'm judging it. My caveat is I'm judging it based on one episode, and I'm looking forward to watching more because, it's unfair to judge a show off one episode. I can't tell you how many times I've made that mistake. I mean, I know Game of Thrones I gave up on after the first episode, coming back several years later.
Did same thing.
And,
I'm
Counter and Farpoint.
Personally, I'm glad I judged Star Trek by The Cage.
but you didn't start with the cage, so
Yeah.
you're a liar, Mr.
That's
Walsh.
a joke. That's a joke, Mr. Altman.
The Cage is still one of the great episodes of Star Trek ever.
It is.
And
Yep.
so's the Menagerie. But the Cage is just brilliant.
It's all right.
I love the Cage. I really love the Cage.
Yeah, I love Lamp.
So anyway, but speaking of the Cage, so we're talking about Strange New Worlds, and you know what? In all seriousness, I know this is a show in the past we've talked about, terrific cast. It's coming to an end in season 5, so there's still a season and a half if you really look at it. 10 episode season 4, and another 5 episode for this final season to follow. I think one of the things I'm surprised about, and I know Darren, you don't watch the show. I have watched the show. Is just how silly it's been. How much they've leaned on these sort of goofy high concept premises as opposed to the thesis of the show, Strange New Worlds, which is what presumably the show should be about, sort of looking for Strange New Worlds. It does feel like it's a bottle show every week. And when it's not, it's just, I find that,
Yeah, and it's like points for being more episodic and anthological than trying to stretch everything out into half-assed modern series
Well,
storytelling.
It's like Jonathan Swift writing stories about Gulliver suddenly becoming tiny. It doesn't make any sense.
Well,
Just-
I will say I'll be interested in hearing what the girls have to say, what the women have to say.
Women.
About the show, because of course I found one episode for a show for Star Trek which is often indicted xenophobia and fear of the other. It seemed to embrace xenophobia, which was very bizarre. And then yet another episode which was called faux documentary, What is Starfleet? When this should be a layup. I mean, MASH did a brilliant documentary episode. Battlestar Galactica did a brilliant documentary episode.
Right.
Babylon 5 did a brilliant documentary episode. And man, this just was like an indictment of the Federation and just how, it didn't at all feel like what Star Trek or what I think of the Starfleet or the Federation. And more than that, it didn't feel like an episode that was a documentary. It had all these weird Dutch camera angles, but it didn't, and these weird wides where, nobody was in frame, but it didn't feel like a documentary. And that's an easy one. That's a no-brainer. It was so bizarre to me. So
Yeah, I just feel like you should know what Star Trek is before you ask what Starfleet is. That's just my personal point of view. And I don't know who needs to hear this. I don't know. But
it's very in a time in which we need hope more than ever, and we need positive and optimism. This is a show that is like a slap in the face. It's like so dark that we just follow orders, and I was really surprised by.
Well, the funny thing is that also demonstrates a complete misunderstanding, at least of how the American military works. It's like, yeah, you know what? if you were like in the Soviet army or like Russian doctrine or Chinese doctrine or whatever, yep, you follow orders, man. That's what you do. But you know, the great thing, and it's something that embedded itself in the philosophy of Star Trek and how Starfleet operates, is that American doctrine has always been, hey, you know what? If the cowboy has a pretty good idea, you let him have the idea. Right? It's like the individual soldier knows how to solve a problem. And that's what Starfleet is. Starfleet is an organization filled with competent people who know how to solve problems.
Well, every Star Trek show has been about a great captain who doesn't follow orders.
Exactly.
Because they know the difference between right and wrong, and they often aren't following orders. And, you know, what we've called one of the great Star Trek movies of all time that isn't a Star Trek movie, Crimson Tide, that's the template.
Yep, exactly. And it's just somehow it's missed. You know, and then, you know, on a lighter note, look, man, if you are genetically emotionless, then you don't need a philosophy of logic, and you certainly don't need a ritual that purges all emotion.
That's
You
correct.
just don't. I'm just saying. Feels like a layup to me.
Again, without bashing, I just think the xenophobia in that is so unforgivable.
Yeah.
It's curious.
And the idea, the complete lack of understanding regarding what Vulcans are, that these are people who have all this emotion that they're repressing, as opposed to they have genetically no emotions. I mean, it's just I don't understand. Like, I don't understand. But again, this is not an episode about our feelings about Strange New Worlds.
Not about
This is it's an episode. We brought on three people who love the show, who are passionate about the show, to share their love, because for us it's important to celebrate the love of everything we love about Star Trek,
Even
and
if it isn't ours.
even if it isn't ours. And it, you know, and literally we don't want to take away people's joy. Whatever gives you joy, you know, that's your joy machine, right? So you know, we don't want to tell you, unless it's Star Trek 3, why something's not good that you love.
Right. In which case we'll tell you that over and over and over again.
You know, we much prefer to find things that maybe you don't like and say, this is why there's something good about this, or there's something redeeming about this, or maybe look at it through this point of view, like Star Trek 5, for instance, right? Yeah. So that's, I think, the pleasure of us welcoming people, you know, not just your fans, but people who all three of us have such tremendous respect for, who are all very successful in the industry, who are super knowledgeable, are super passionate about Star Trek, to the point where it's almost unfathomable when we listen to their you know, we could, you know, you know, we're watching the same show, but it's great, and I love listening to them talk about and I hope you will too, when Kay and Aaron, when Kay and Gab and ZAZIE join us after these brief commercial messages. So stay tuned. And when they're done, John, we'll be back with a few closing thoughts. Okay, it's so great to have you back by popular demand. I told you, you guys came and did this Strange New Worlds for us a couple of at the beginning of the 7th season, and all these fans were writing in and going on the social and saying, well, I hope you're going to have them back. And here you are, Gabrielle Stanton, KAY REINDL, ZAZIE Sales, all back to talk about their Strange New Worlds. And I really can't be paid enough to actually do this, but I will do it because I like everyone here, and it's my podcast, so I guess I have to do it. But you know, one of the things I was thinking, it's like, you know, we talk a lot about everything, you know, what you do, you know, as showrunners and as writer producers and all this stuff. But we haven't talked about your Star Trek bona fides. So I thought maybe that's a nice way to start before we get into the season of Strange New Worlds. Maybe it's a way of delaying the inevitable for me. I don't know. But Gab, you know, you obviously was one of your early sales was to Deep Space Nine.
That was my very first story sale for television, was for Deep Space Nine.
But you also produced, if I remember, it was William Shatner's Star Trek Memories, which was a special way back when.
Yep. I worked for the company that made that, and way back in the day while I was still temping and doing everything that I could possibly do to put food in my mouth while I was trying to break into television, I actually worked for Creation Entertainment. And one of my jobs was at the conventions to like, walk around, like be in the green room and like interview some of the stars. I, once had to like, escort a visitor to the bathroom because they didn't have like a green room behind, so she had to like walk through the crowd and so that was very exciting. She told me once that someone had slid under the stall while she was in there and took a photo.
Oh my, are you serious?
But here's the thing, they weren't even trying to catch like a coochie shot or anything. They just were so excited to get her picture. But she was like, and she took it with the grace that she always has. But she was like, could you wait till I come out and wash my hands? And I swear to God, you can have a photo.
Wow. It's so funny. Not much has changed because, I mentioned on the podcast that, Isaac kept running into Brent in the bathroom. So, and it was funny because I think the third time they ran into each other in the bathroom, Isaac turned to Brent and with perfect timing said, "We have to stop meeting like this."
Nice.
Which was great, which was worthy of Brent. So I appreciate my son's perfect comic timing. And of course, Gab, you're a longtime Star Trek fan going back to the original series.
Going back to the first time I found it on WPIX in New York, Channel 11, when I was 8 years old. I watched, I think it was Turnabout Intruder. It was my first episode. It was terrifying. I saw like half of it. I couldn't believe it. I had nightmares all night. And then went back the next day at 6 and watched the next one and never stopped again.
That's true. I can vouch for her bona fides for sure. And Kay, what about you? I mean, you spent most of the pandemic watching Star Trek with a bunch of friends on Zoom.
Yes, I did. The first Star Trek episode I ever saw, and I remember my mom was ironing, and it was a Savage Curtain.
Hmm.
And why I remember that is because I didn't know what four score was.
Your mom's ironing and she's going, "Help me, Spock."
Yeah, my ex-Calbian mother. But that was the first Star Trek episode I ever saw. And then I watched, obviously I was watching original series wherever it would pop up. Because back in the day, kids, I don't know if you remember or know this or if your grandparents told you, but we did not have video on demand. We had to turn on a device called a television and watch whatever showed up on it. So it was, I know you can't understand that, but that's what we had to do. So it was very hard to really watch things. And I just remember every time I'd catch a Star Trek episode, I would just be like, that is just so different from anything else that's on. And then when Next Generation started, I think I still have the letter that Columbia House sent me when I had purchased all of the VHS of Next Generation.
I had those in the fancy boxes. They came.
Yes. Oh, that took up so much room.
Now, that's funny. I don't think I wrote the liner notes for this Next Generation Columbia House. I did the Babylon 5 Columbia House.
Nice.
And this is true. And I did I think the Batman, the animated series Columbia House. And I might have done, I don't think I did the Next Gen. Maybe I did Deep Space Nine. I don't know. No, I don't think so. But yeah, I did a bunch of those Columbia houses.
Oh my God. It was the best. It was just like you could put the videotape in and watch whatever episode you wanted. So yeah, I was always just a science fiction fan anyway, and there was just always Star Trek, and there were movies, and I had a drama teacher in high school who was a freak for Star Trek. So he had posters of Spock up in his room, and so yeah, I've always loved it. I've always wanted to work on it. They've always said no. But what can you do?
Hey, the career is not over yet, and you know what? Can be a lot of changes over at Star Trek in the next couple of years. So don't stop believing.
I'm tech avail is all I'm saying.
And what about you, Zazie? What's your Star Trek story?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've told you about the article, right?
Mhm.
My mom is a Vanity Fair writer. Her name's Nancy Jo Sales, and 10 years ago, it was just the 10-year anniversary actually, because I was 15 when she wrote the article, but she wrote this article about me in Vanity Fair called My Super Sweet Teenage Star Trek Convention, and it was about my first Star Trek convention ever. Um, and I guess it sort of at the time like made the rounds in the Star Trek community, which I wasn't really aware of until like kind of recently. But yeah, I think I started watching Star Trek when I was probably like 12 or 13. I don't really remember, but I watched it on Netflix. Um, so very different.
Very different.
That was the way to do
I,
it.
I started with the original series. I think the first episode I ever watched was the pilot of the original series on Netflix. So,
Yeah, I was going to say, in the language of your planet, what's your beam? But I was afraid you wouldn't get it, but I forgot you're a big TOS fan, so you might have gotten the reference. Yeah, that's great. And of course, we're here to talk about the third season of Strange New Worlds, and as we've mentioned, you're all big Strange New Worlds fans, and so I got to ask you what you thought of the new season overall before we dive into some of the episodes. And if you haven't heard their thoughts on the first two episodes, hegemony,
I don't know how to say it either. Thank God.
hegemony, or part two, and Wedding Bell Blues. Then you want to go back and listen to the previous episode with the dream team over here. But overall, Gab, what do you think of this season of Strange New Worlds? I know you're a big fan of season one and season two.
It's funny because it's definitely an odd season, but I have some sympathy for it. Because what I feel like they kind of did was, look, when we all used to watch 22 episodes of, a season of television, you always had these episodes that were kind of like the big swings, like kind of the weird episodes that they kind of scattered throughout the season in the middle of all the kind of, normal episodes that they would do every week. And I feel like the problem with this season is it was just those episodes. They kind of like pulled them all out. So every episode was kind of that weird big swing episode. And so you didn't get kind of the standard, like, this is the episode of the week episode. But look, I think they accomplished some really fun stuff. I mean, look, it's 2025. There is just crazy stuff going on. I wake up every single day in like a hot sweat. If, I smile because I get to watch 3 minutes of Spock explaining contractions to Patton Oswalt, then I feel like this show has succeeded.
What about you, Kay? What was your reaction overall? Because I know when we started talking about the season a couple of weeks ago, you were cautiously optimistic. Where'd you end the season?
I am not as pleased or optimistic as I was early on. And
welcome to our world.
No, I'm not in your world, but I saw a headline the other day from the showrunners, and they promised that season 4 would be better than season 3. So I think that they apparently, and I don't know the specifics of it, but they had a lot of issues. Obviously, the writer's strike, there were things that happened that they never felt like they really got their feet under it. It felt to me that they were running from episode to episode as opposed to what they had done in the previous 2 seasons, which is really build out an arc and then put those standalone episodes within that arc. It just felt more scattered, and based on the first 2 seasons, it really, I think, does stand out. That said, there were a couple things that I really liked about it, and then there were some things that continued to happen that I did not like about it. But that's kind of my call.
We'll break that down in a second. And for you, Zazie, overall, if you were teaching and Strange New Worlds was your student, and they turned in their final, what was your grade for the semester?
I mean, for me, Star Trek is all about joy, and I just know that I felt a lot of joy watching this season. I mean, I laughed, I cried. Overall, I mean, yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I just really, felt a lot of emotion watching it. So yeah, that's a very vague answer, I guess. But if I had to give it a grade, If I had to give it a grade, I mean, A plus. I give all of Star Trek A plus, honestly. That's just how I am
Wait,
about Star
wait,
Trek.
wait. You give all of Star Trek an A plus?
All of
You
Star
give
Trek, yes.
Enterprise an A plus. You give
I give Enterprise an A
Voyager.
plus. I
Oh
give
God!
Threshold an A plus. I give
What?
Spock's Brain an A
Oh
plus.
my God!
It's all great.
You represent a side of fandom which is not often represented on our show, and I think it's wonderful.
It is
Okay.
never represented on any show. I think that's
Well, I
I
mean,
think it's
more.
great. Like, yeah, I mean, I think the fact that you love Star Trek so much and that it is bringing you so much joy, that's the purity we need, I think, in the world.
Yeah, well, I think, more broadly, that's what fandom is about, right? It's supposed to be something that it's like a safe space and it brings you joy. And that's sort of what I like to focus on in that space. You know what I mean?
Much joy and gratitude, much like the solar starfish felt towards the Enterprise and Encounter at Farpoint. And they made an appearance in the season of Strange New Worlds, apparently, as well. Okay, so I want to talk about the highlights for you. Let's start with the highlights rather than the lowlights. Why don't we start with you, Kay? What were some of the highlights for you this season? Episodes, scenes, characters.
Well, I mean, one of the things that I really, really adore about this show is I love the characters. I love every single one of them. I love watching them. I love watching them interact. I love watching them have joy because they do. These are people who are loving their job, absolutely friggin' loving it. And I really, really appreciate that. There's no, oh God, I mean, it's just so exhausting to be the captain of a starship, kind of beginning of Star Trek Beyond sort of nonsense. So I always love the characters. I think the show is perfectly cast. The character relationships, I think, even though she didn't have an episode this season, I thought the interactions that number one had with the captain were really quite good. And I love that particular relationship. I don't think we've seen it sort of that there's a partnership between them that doesn't really exist, just as we talked last time about command styles and things like that. So I really, really like that. There were some episodes I thought Shuttle to Kinfori was a pretty good episode. I like when they are doing sort of the visceral, more tilted towards horror stuff. I think they're really good at it, which it's just not something that's ever been in the Star Trek DNA before. I thought the episode with the Farragut, the Sea Lot one, I thought that was pretty good. And I mean, I think like in every episode, there was something that I really, really enjoyed. One thing that really stood out, and this is actually great and also part of the problem of the show, is there's a great scene near the end. I think it's in the final episode between Kirk and Scotty. And it's a scene in the bar, and it's great. They play off each other so amazingly, but they're not main characters. And that's kind of an issue for the show. But I think Paul Wesley's doing a great job as Kirk. I really like him. He's not trying to be Shatner. And I think if there's somebody more adorable than Martin Quinn on this planet, I have not seen them yet. He's a gem. So there were a lot of character interactions like that I really, really did enjoy.
Great. And then, Gab, for you, same question. What were the standouts for you, or who were the standouts? Is there an episode you want to point out to, like you felt this was the template for the show, this is what it should be, we really liked?
Well, it's for me, it's exactly what Kay said. I'm really enjoying the characters. I love the interactions. I do enjoy the difference in command style between like the Kirk and like the Picard and the other captains that we know, and Pike, who just has this much more I want to call it like casual manner. I mean, he's kind of like bringing everyone into it. I know you get so mad when you're like,
I
planning a
hate
starship
that
is not
so
a democracy.
It's the worst.
But I like seeing it. I like it because I feel like these are people who really would die for each other, and I like it. I really liked his relationship with Marie Patel. I liked that we saw a captain who wasn't going out and finding like an Orion princess every week. Like what does that kind of relationship look like? That seemed really true to me. But to your question of like, what did I feel like was the episode that like this should be about every week? Again, I don't think there was one. Every episode just seemed so fun, but like out of the box. But what I really kind of enjoyed from each one was, I have to say, the Easter eggs. Like I loved, like Wedding Bell Blues would not have been what I would have done for number 2 for this season after like, the big Gorn battle and everything. I understand they wanted to take it lighter, but it was a little too over the top. But like 4 minutes in, I'm like, oh my God, that guy's Trelane. I mean, he even looks like him. I was so excited. And then I found out like John DeLancey played like his father's voice. And I'm like, I love this, and then like the Metrons show up at some point and I'm like, I love this. And, just those little things, like Zazie said, just, I was like happy about, and it just made me happy. But, and also kind of to what Kay was saying is, I think what they did do this season that I don't really think any other Star Trek has done as successfully is bring in the horror. I think the Gorn were scary as crap. I think the Vesda just took it right out of the park. I mean, like in the finale, when you saw in the orb like those things like coming out, it really kind of had that alien feel to it, like Alien the movie feel. And I thought that was something that you don't normally expect to see on Star Trek. Everything seems a little cleaner, on a Star Trek episode.
Before I ask Zazie the same question, I just want to elaborate on the horror, because of course you're saying this is the first time that Star Trek's really delved into horror. But I don't you think that Brandon Braga pulled off horror in Next Gen and Voyager, really well? I mean, in fact, he's a real horror guy, and I mean some of those episodes, if you look at Schisms and some of the darker episodes of Next Generation, and Voyager as well. I mean, he brought his affinity for horror, to those shows. So I mean, I don't think that this show is unique in that it's a horror.
I think for me, it's how it's shot. And they, on those Star Trek shows, you're on a carpeted bridge. And they're not shooting the way that they're shooting on this show. I think like for me, Brandon's stuff is, it's definitely twisty and complex. The thing that it doesn't read horror to me, it reads really specific point of view, which is definitely what you need for horror, but it doesn't quite go there. But it's not because of the writing, it's because of how it's shot and lit and all of that stuff. I think that on this show, when they did the Gorn episode last year, that was the first time for me that they really did an episode of horror. And they have been able to continue that. But I think it's because they have people working on the show who've done it, who've worked on it. And it really does come across. It's no slight whatsoever on what came before at all. It's just a different technique.
I think we have the advantage of the 2025 technology that obviously we did not have back then. And I think, look, to Brandon and to the older Star Trek's, credit, I think they then leaned into kind of more the Hitchcockian horror of it with the suspense and, like the drama and the dread of it all, because they couldn't create something like the Vesda, back then. But I'm interested in how, as they move forward, now that we can have both, we can have the dread and make it look really scary, like if they decide to move further in that direction.
You didn't think that the Vesda were like third-rate paw race?
No, they really creeped me out, man. I don't know.
They were different to me.
Yeah.
They're different.
And the whole gamble thing, like, I mean, look, I knew the second he's like, and then Becca hugged him and he was going down the planet. I'm like, oh, we'll just put a red shirt on that.
Yeah.
But, it just, I don't know. It worked for me.
Okay, what about you? Same question for you, Zazie. Things about the season that really resonated for you, and whether it be characters or episodes, the thing that gave you that joy.
Yeah, well, I mean, I do want to talk about my favorite episode of the season, which was Terrarium, where Ortegas is down on it's not a planet, it's like a moon or something. I don't remember exactly, but
It's like
she's
an
with the
asteroid.
Gorn. Yeah, an asteroid. And she's trapped there with the Gorn. And yeah, I don't know. I loved that episode so much. I think it just felt really like classic Star Trek to me, like the ethical dilemma of it and exploring themes of prejudice and, like the scene where they play chess together was so adorable. Um, it really gave me like Darmok vibes,
Hmm.
in a good way. Um, and I think that it felt like something that we need more of in our current political climate, episodes like that. Because it's, like I said, it's so classic Star Trek, these sort of exploring these like larger themes with, aliens and sci-fi and stuff. But it was all a reflection on society and like real life. And yeah, I thought it was really well done.
And are there other characters that stood out? What are you smirking about, Kay? You're smirking. What?
Not listeners, I was not smirking.
You look like you were smirking.
No.
Okay, okay. Never mind. Okay, I stand corrected about that. So Zazie, what about characters that you loved this season?
I mean, to, other people's points, I've really enjoyed seeing like, the early original series crew like Kirk and Scotty. I really love Scotty. He's become one of my favorite characters on the show, I think. Especially his relationship with oh my God, I'm forgetting her name.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
Oh,
Kelly.
Pelia Carol
Yes,
Kane.
yes.
Yeah.
The one who talks like this and I
Yeah.
love Carol Kane in everything I've ever seen her in until this.
That has to change.
I cannot understand a
Yeah.
goddamn what he says. It's a problem.
Yeah, I also did really love the episode with the holodeck where they make fun of the original series. I thought it was, affectionate. It was affectionately poking fun at the original series. And Paul Wesley's Shatner impression was great.
I just wanted to just point
Carry
one
on this conversation while I sit
thing.
here.
I don't know
Try not to say anything.
if you watch all the way through the credits in that episode, they have outtakes.
I know. Yeah.
Mhm.
And he tries to do the Riker swings
I
like
know.
Yeah.
I could not stop laughing at that. It's like
Very
the chairs are too tall.
Yeah.
Because Star Trek is meta now, and it's all a Beatlemania, and it's trying to make fun of. Okay. Anyway, let's keep going. Okay. So we talked a lot about the things that you guys really love about this season and where it was effective. Now, including the producers, and you've acknowledged there are some areas where maybe it wasn't as it didn't deliver. What were those, and why for you, Kay?
I think for me, the biggest issue that I had is I felt that there were too many callbacks. It's one thing for me, it's one thing to have a callback to an earlier episode or series. It's another thing to have to then have a scene where a character awkwardly explains why nobody in next generation or in the original series is going to remember what just happened. I like for me, if you do that one time, you're like, look, we're gonna do this. We came up with this really great idea. That's one thing. I think they did it 4 times.
Mhm.
That's almost half. and that's just a
Wait,
little
Trelane,
Mhm.
the Metrons.
Metrons.
Well, the Metrons I buy. The Metrons didn't necessarily
that bugged me.
I
Yeah.
don't know, but see, only she was the only one who saw the Metron. Or
No, it
Tegan,
wasn't.
so-
It was right. It wasn't that part of it. It was the Metron having
the same great
say,
bathrobe.
So you guys kind of screwed it up, but you know what? Maybe we can try again later. And then that led me to ask, I was really enjoying the episode, aside from the unfortunate costuming of the Gorn that made her look like a little old Jewish lady with the but I was enjoying it because it really felt like a human alien trying to communicate situation there. And I always like Ortega's.
But she didn't know what she meant when she offered her matzo ball soup.
She was
Didn't get
so
it.
confused. She was like, what is this, like a delicacy here? I don't know. But then when the Metron shows up, then I have all these questions. And they're not good questions. They're not questions I should have. Questions like, what the hell? Like, when did you capture this Mother Gorn and put her there? Because it seems like she's been there forever. The Gorn, by the way, are
Hibernating. I was like, why is she not hibernating?
Not even a threat to us right now. The whole reason that Arena works is because the Gorn have just committed this atrocity. They are an immediate threat. This, to me, it just doesn't work in that way because it's just way too removed. I mean, when you see it's a Gorn, the audience is like, oh, right, the Gorn. Yeah. They were really scary. So it doesn't work for me in that way because it's just not immediate. And then, the whole thing when the Metron showed up, I would have been happier if they hadn't. Honestly, I think
I feel like it was kind of stuck on at the end. Like someone in the writer's room like came up with the idea and they're like, and what if the Metrons did it at the very end? They're like, shoot that scene.
Yeah, I mean, it just bugged me. If it had just been like, we don't know why that Gorn was there, we have no idea what happened, we rescued Ortegas, then I also would have bought more La'an shooting the Gorn, because that I was just like, that's why you fail, because this poor woman who has been tortured by the Gorn kills the Gorn, like for her entire life.
Mm-hmm.
This is not Kirk wanting to kill a Gorn because of what the Gorn just, like, this is completely different. So that bugged me. And then they basically did Inner Light in the final episode. And there was something else. What else did they do? There was another one that they did. I know there was a fourth one.
Well, the scavengers were kind of very similar, I thought, to like, Voyager or the Changeling or something.
Yeah, they were. Oh, and then the holodeck, which was like, we've seen the holodeck. I mean, it was funny. It was funny as hell, like Anson Mount as Gene Roddenberry. That was pretty great. But I just like, contextually, I just was like, but wow, you're not doing anything different. Like if you were doing, it was the same kind of episode that we would see. It's basically, okay, so we have to make him Moriarty. So I really felt like that was my biggest criticism of the season, is that. And then there were too many scenes of women talking about men, and I don't need that in my Star Trek anymore, unless they're wearing leotards.
Yeah.
Weirdly.
You don't think the whole show is a giant soap opera?
Oh, it's one thing to be a soap opera, and it's another thing to have women who we have seen be incredibly capable women who can stand on their own. Just when they get together, they talk about men. It just bugged me.
But they're not leotards, so they shouldn't do that. Like was it The Price? What was that episode?
It's not The Price. They do it in Sub Rosa, and they do it in there's another episode they do it in. I can't think of what it is, but
what was that? That was like the only time they ever talked to each other too.
They literally only had conversations about men. So this is not that show, but I just was like, really? Do we have to do that? So that's my main criticism.
It has more dating than on a CW show.
Which is fine. Like, that's great. I like that. I mean, I'm still, I'm bummed out that chap was with such a freaking drip, but I guess you have.
Oh, that's your other reference. You said that's another thing. You said when you're saying going back to the well, Roger Corby as well.
And that's okay, because
he is part of canon. Like he is.
It just feels to me like they were like, oh, and then Roger Corby shows up, and then they didn't go beyond that. So I don't know why they're together at all. I knew why she and Spock were together. I didn't see it this season.
Yeah, I mean, you could say that's a product of some of the guest casting, Which, how do you feel, Gab, about the guest cast? Has anybody really impressed you outside of the main cast, the ensemble?
Not really. I mean, I have to think about that for a second. I mean, no, there's probably no one that I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Except, again, I like Trelane. I like Doug, the, the Vulcan who showed up.
Patton
Patton
Oswalt.
Oswalt who showed up in 4.5 Vulcans, which I wanted to be a better episode than it was. I really wanted it to be a better episode than it was. But it had its moments, its tiny moments of joy. But mostly because I feel like, Spock just, I think he just nails it. That guy just does such a good job, and he just does the look, the like, look that Nimoy used to do so well. Whenever like the humans would be off doing something stupid, he would just give that like side eye, like, oh God, whatever.
And now it's like he can't even win
Yeah,
because now the Vulcans are looking down on him like
he's got
just
nowhere to go.
again.
I want to ask Zazie, because you said show's A plus, A number one for you. But are there things that have disappointed you, or episodes that didn't deliver for you?
I wouldn't really say there was anything I was disappointed by. I would only say that in future episodes, I would love to see more sort of ethical dilemmas. I said that Terrarium was my favorite episode this season, and I would like to see more of that, I think, because I think it's going to become more and more important, considering the world that we live in. In a way, I feel like Star Trek is more relevant now than maybe it ever has been before. And I really don't want Star Trek to lose its core from the original series, which is, to imagine this sort of utopian future where everyone is equal, and just that kind of the interest in justice and equality and tolerance and things like that. That's really what I want to see in episodes in the future, if that makes sense.
Well, let me, since you talk about wrestling with ethical conundrums, I think there's an episode that attempted to do that, which was What is Starfleet, which is the documentary episode. Babylon 5 has done it, MASH has done it, Battlestar Galactica has done it. How effective did you feel that this episode was in dealing with the ethical conundrum that it put forward?
Sorry. No, I thought it was a really fun episode, but I feel like Kay has something to say about it. So
She's not smirking now. Go ahead, Kay.
Before, I did not like it at all.
I knew I liked you, Kay.
It felt like it was in the wrong season. Like if it had been an early first season episode with a character we hadn't met before, I think I would have appreciated it more. I just felt like, okay, now you're doing this episode called What is Starfleet? It's a documentary, and it's about the documentarian who is the brother of one of our characters. Why are we doing that? I felt like it was simplistic, and I actually wanted just to kind of see what the mission was. Like I just wanted to go because it was an interesting mission, and I think maybe we would have gotten those ethical conversations if we had just seen the mission. So it definitely did not work for me.
Well, in this playful season, it felt like that the cynicism of the episode just didn't belong here. It felt the first only episode that really kind of felt Star Trek Discovery to me a little bit.
Oh, that's a good point.
In the sense that it just had that level of like,
Serious.
Just looking inward, but not actually asking the questions that you need to be asking.
And the series also postulated in this version of Star Trek what Captain Kirk's first captain mission would be in this universe. And it was in the Selot Who Ate Its Tail, where Captain Garavik was nowhere to be found. But tell us about what your thoughts were about that, because obviously Paul Wesley has been a big part of the season. weaving his way through many of the episodes. So what was your feeling about the way that, Kirk was integrated and, and what Paul was doing and just sort of how Kirk was developed throughout the season? Kay, you want to say?
Sure. I really liked that episode. I think that what's cool about the way Paul Wesley plays the character is that he does play the cockiness, but he also plays the vulnerability and the fact that he's unsure. So I really appreciated that. I think that was especially true in that episode. I really and that was, they might be running together for me, but that was the episode where he had all of his crew on the Farragut, right? Yeah. I like that. I thought, I mean, it's I get it. It's like, oh, come on, we're not doing that show. But it was nice to see them look at him like he was an idiot. Like, you're not even a captain right now, buddy. You're not doing the job. So I really did appreciate that. It made me want Star Trek Year One series.
Never gonna happen. It's
I know.
never gonna happen.
I know, but I
Thank
want
God.
No, but you, Mark, you don't like it because, like, look, James T. Kirk was not like, just like birthed fully formed onto the bridge of the Enterprise. Like there was a learning curve.
Mhm.
And I feel like you see a little bit of that. But what I think that they do very successfully, like Kay's saying with his character, is you see the fits and the starts of him trying to figure out what's going on, but you also like get that sense of who he's going to be. I mean, for me, like I loved it. I think it was the final episode when Spock has to initiate like the first Vulcan mind meld
Yes.
with Kirk,
Yeah.
And I think it was Ortega says to Kirk or something like, "Well, we understand that you're the kind of guy who does things other people don't." Like you'll do it just because you'll try it. And I thought that is so Kirk,
And it's funny when we were talking about command styles last time, and you literally see it in this episode. You see the difference between what Pike does and what Kirk thinks he's doing. Because he doesn't have his command style yet. And then he kind of reverts a little bit and he's just like, I am going to ask people, but that's not going to be his thing. But it is him sort of casting around, trying to figure out before he's ready what his command style is and how he's going to make these people trust him and follow him.
And Zazie, how about you? Have you found the integration of sort of Paul Wesley's Captain Kirk character into the show, and how and has that helped the episodes that you do you like that, and or is it like Kay said about sort of the allusions to all previous episodes, previous shows? Is it something that they've leaned on too much, or is it just right for you?
Well, I just love Captain Kirk, so I'm always happy to see him. But I think that there's been some really amazing, Spock and Kirk moments this season. I really love seeing them together in any capacity. I love seeing them when they're young together. I think, other people also said this, but the writing and the acting on that show is really great in terms of showing like young Kirk and young Spock and showing sort of like how they got to where they're going to get in the original series. So yeah, I really loved the mind meld moment from the final episode. That was really great. And yeah, I don't know. I love Captain Kirk and I'll take him where I can get him. So
I love Captain Kirk too. We have that in common. Not in this show though. Okay, so let's talk about favorite episodes. You mentioned Terrarium was the highlight for you, Zazie. Gab, what was your favorite episode of the season?
Hold on, let me think. All right, I'm gonna go. It's not normally what I would have picked after saying like I love the whole Easter eggs and all the flashback and something, but I'm gonna go through the lens of time. It is my favorite episode, but it's also kind of the source of my greatest regret for this season.
How so?
Because I thought it was really interesting. It was a very interesting science fiction, like it could have been a little movie. I mean, it really could have been like, a group of people on a spaceship discover this planet. Like, what is it? Oh my God, is this? It's a temple, it's a prison, all this stuff going on. It introduced like, this great new villain. And I thought it was scary, and I thought had horror in it. I thought the character work was really well done. I where it comes from the regret is because, as we were saying earlier, as I was saying, like because I felt like all these episodes were so kind of scattered and almost like a standalone. I felt like it set up something that they didn't play out enough over the course of the season. So we got to the last episode, which I really could also say is also one of my favorite episodes, although incredibly flawed. But it was the potential of that episode that I like so much. But it needed to be two episodes, or it needed to be set up. I mean, but 20 minutes in, I like almost pulled out a pad and started taking notes because I was like, oh my God, like we are just cramming in like stuff that we should have been talking about for 7 episodes. But I mean, it just if we could have started there and just in these episodes, even with the standalone elements, been able to pull some of this through, especially the Patel stuff, which I think was so beautiful and could have worked so well if they had spent enough time over the course of the season setting it up. But and look, I loved the Inner Light stuff. I'm like a sucker for that. I mean, Will Trent did that at the end of the first season. I don't know if anyone watches that show on ABC, but like, I'm a sucker for that. And
Zazie, do you watch broadcast television? I just want to find out. This is just a sample. Do you watch broadcast television? She said, do you watch ABC?
You can watch Will Trent on
No.
Hulu.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I really only watch stuff on like streaming.
There you go.
But it had.
Sorry.
It
This is why our business is dying.
It had that sliding doors thing, where you like a character was about to make a major decision, and you saw basically how his life would play out, and then he comes back and he makes the other decision. But it had that Inner Light feel to it. But those 2 episodes, I think, I really liked, and yet were a little disappointed in, and yet I think really points to what this show could be if it just has a chance. And I think honestly, a lot of it is 2025. You only get 10 episodes. What if they had 13 episodes? What if they had 22 episodes? What if you could like take your time with this?
Hold that thought, because that'll be my next question. And I know that we have Zazie already addressed her favorite, but Kay, you haven't told us what your favorite episode is this season.
I think probably Through the Lens of Time is my second favorite, but honestly, that and Shuttle to Kenfori, I think are two that I like the most. I thought Shuttle to Kenfori, which is basically Train to Busan, which is fine with me, was a really great adventure episode. Very clear stakes. They knew exactly what they were going to get. A lot of amazing character stuff with Mbenga. So I really liked that episode. Through the Lens of Time, to me, I was like, so this is not a Doctor Who episode, because it feels like
It felt a little like
Doctor Who's companion landed in that damn temple
Mhm.
and are now trying to get out.
Okay, I'm so glad you brought that up, though, Kay, because you just alluded to Doctor Who, and you also earlier talked about how there are too many references to other Star Trek that came before it. So I want to ask how you feel about the attempt to make Doctor Who canon in the Star Trek universe, because first it was a visual effect that was sort of slipped in surreptitiously, but then in the last episode, Carol Kane literally says "time traveling doctor." What's the verdict on this?
Mark, as soon as that came out of her mouth, I was glad I understood it. When she said it, I started writing fanfic in my head. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I thought it was hilarious.
I had to rewind it 3 times though to figure out what she was saying, because
I
I'm
was
like,
like,
wait, what?
wait, did
What?
you say she was?
A time traveling character.
I'm gonna
I
start putting the
friggin' love
closed
it.
captions on when she's on screen.
Oh, that's a good idea. I thought it was hilarious. It really, I mean, just given how they have sort of filled out her backstory, when we see her quarters,
With the phones, I love the episode where they all had to use the lamp.
and then just all the crap she had in her quarters. She's the only one who has stuff of any of them. I thought it was hilarious. So I was I laughed a lot at that. I have to admit.
What about you, Zazie? Any excitement over the Doctor Who or?
I mean, I don't really want there to be a crossover potentially, just because I'm definitely way more critical of Doctor Who than I am of Star Trek. I mean, I love Doctor Who, but there's a lot of things about it that I don't love. Like there are things about it. Yeah, I'm critical of Doctor Who, but I still love it. But I would prefer it if these two universes sort of stayed separate.
Don't get
And
chocolate
at
in
the
your peanut
moment, they're
butter.
different studios, so
Yeah, there's no way they'll ever like.
yeah, yeah.
Well, you never know,
At the moment, I
BBC.
said at the moment.
You never know who
Yeah.
else Paramount's going to buy.
Yeah.
The BBC? Who knows?
But if they buy Disney,
Mm.
that's basically Doctor Who. So
Hmm.
In 5 years, it'll just be one giant monolith company, like that big thing that they have on the planet. It was just this
Yeah.
giant thing. That'll be.
God, that thing was
the
gorgeous,
studio.
wasn't it?
I
mean,
thought that all.
shout
I
out
thought
to visual
that-
effects.
that had to be
architecture.
like the volume on like the best day that anyone's ever used it. It was gorgeous.
Well,
I
what's the
mean-
volume?
That thing you shoot like in this like 24 like. Right, I'm doing like a circle that no one can
No,
see.
it was
You can
clearly the
basically do like a
volume.
yeah, you can do like a surround, but it just it was the rendering was gorgeous.
It was incredible. It was incredible. Like the inventiveness and the imagination that they put into the show is even if it's something that I don't love, there's always something about it that I'm just like, oh, look at that. Look what they did there.
Okay, now that you say that, Mark, I'm obsessed with that. Could have been a Doctor Who episode. I'm picturing like the Doctor like yelling as everyone's poking their eyes out and everything, and like
Yes.
running down and trying to stop. Oh, okay, now I'm
And
really
at one point being a moron and looking at the vessel going, oh, aren't you gorgeous?
yeah, exactly.
Zazie's going to hate this question because I'm specifically addressing it to you because you're the younger panelist. No,
Okay.
Compared to me, for instance. So the question is, Gab talked about how she turned on the subtitles just to understand Pelia.
Mm-hmm.
Do you watch the show with subtitles or without subtitles?
No, I don't.
Good for you, because these kids, they always watch with the subtitles, and I don't
Why?
get it.
Yeah,
I don't
I
know.
know. I don't know why.
It is a thing with my generation,
Yeah.
right?
Ah.
I only put on subtitles if it's like a different language or if it's a Robert Eggers film, and I literally can't. Those are the only times.
My husband and I were watching Black Dove, which I highly recommend, and there were a couple episodes where I was like, let's turn those up. Let's turn
Yeah.
because it all takes place in England, so you're like,
Yeah,
Okay,
and especially if it's in the north, you're just like, I'm
yeah,
sorry.
you're like, I don't know what that is.
That's
Mark,
gotta go.
can I ask you a question?
It depends. Let's see. You can ask
Well,
me
no,
a
it's just-
question.
I've seen some people like on the internet or whatever complain about Spock's romances on Strange New Worlds, or like complain about how many romances he has.
Mhm.
What are your feelings on that?
Well, look, here's the thing. This is all about you guys sharing your passion and love, and I appreciate you addressing that question to me, but I don't really want to be part of this conversation. I will tell you
fair.
this. I absolutely think This Side of Paradise is a very, very special episode, brilliantly written by Dorothy Fontana, and to see the walls of Spock's unemotional, and again, it's not a genetic thing. Vulcan has tremendous amount of emotion that they're repressing, they're holding back. Okay,
Yeah.
they're not like genetically unemotional. Okay, so but when he has his veneer of rationality ripped from him by the spores and falls in love with Jill Ireland, and that last line where he says, "For once in my life, I was happy." DC Fontana, that's writing. The way it's shot by Ralph Sineski, that's directing. And they had 6-7 days. They didn't have 900 days to shoot this stuff. They didn't have a volume. They anyway. So yes, I appreciate the question, and I will tell you that I think Spock romance is, unlike something maybe like in the Cloudminders, where he's musing on the fair Roxine, and that is it's a little goofy, but I think that was so brilliant. I mean, the famous story is that when DC Fontana said to Leonard, "I'm writing a romance for you," and Leonard's like, "What? You can't write a romance for Spock." I mean, literally said this. You can't write a romance for Spock. She says, "Oh, you'll see." And of course, it was one of his favorite episodes. So so I do enjoy the depiction of this romances under certain circumstances.
Well, because I mean, what you're saying, the side of power, really does establish like that he did have romances,
Yeah.
in the
No,
past.
that's not what it is. It establishes that Jill Ireland,
But
who has
she
not
knew,
been,
she
that
knew they had
Leela
a thing.
Kalomi,
They had a
that
thing.
Leela Kalomi was desperately in love with Spock, and he couldn't reciprocate. Once the
That didn't
spores
mean they didn't go to
allowed
dinner and
him,
mess around. It just means he didn't move in.
no, it
Yeah.
doesn't mean that at all. It doesn't mean that at all.
I
And
think
finally,
there
she has a chance to have it reciprocated, something that was never reciprocated.
I think there are degrees though, right? For Spock. And I mean, I understand what you're saying totally. And it definitely is something where you're like, well, that means none of this could happen. But I do think that there are degrees of intimacy with him. And he's really struggling with that as a younger version of Spock. And that's why he and Chapel don't work. Because she's just like, I can't do whatever this is. Like you're in the driver's seat and I don't even know what kind of car we're in. So I think there are degrees of that. I don't know what's going to happen with him and Laan, but they are both very reserved.
They're both going to be great dancers. That we know.
No, I mean, look, Dancing with the Stars, why aren't they on it?
Yeah, totally.
But I think that right now for them, that relationship is exactly perfect because they both have the same amount of reserve to themselves emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it's working for me.
And then when she says, I'd like to introduce you to my dad, Khan, to get his approval for us to get married.
All
I
right.
mean,
That's a little bit of a question. There's all sorts of question marks about
Oh, yeah,
how
you
they're going
think?
to do that.
oh
but
no, I mean it's
it's a mess.
I
yeah.
love her as a refugee of the Gorn. I think that's great. I don't know why they had to put a hat on that banana. I don't
Yeah.
understand.
That's great. A hat on a banana. That's a new one. I love that. My last question for you, and I'll start with Zazie, is, I think, Gab, you started the conversation by saying, there's only a season and a half left of the show, right? 10 episodes and 5, so 15 episodes left. And, a lot of excuses for the season of the writer's strike, yada, yada, yada. But now there's, fourth season finished filming this summer. They're filming the 5th season soon. They're writing it now. What do you want to see from the show in those last 15 episodes, Az?
Well, I think I mentioned before that I'd love to see more, sort of like ethical episodes where
Right.
they
You did
delve
mention
into
that.
stuff like that. But also, I mean, yeah, I want to see more goofiness too. I think that that's like a really core part of Star Trek as well, is like just, the silliness of it and the camp. And I think they've done a really good job with that so far, but I would also love to see more of that moving forward. And I'm very much looking forward to the Muppet episode. I know that
Smile time. Oh, sorry. That's Gab's show.
I think that's been sort of there's been mixed emotions about that. But I'm looking forward to it. So yeah.
And Kay, what about you? What are you looking forward to, and what are your hopes for these last 15 episodes?
I want them to get back to being more consistent, not necessarily within episodes as much, but season long. I think that one of the issues, another big issue that I had this year, and I know this was probably scheduling and all this other stuff that was going on, is how there's this huge thing that happens with Patel, and then it's literally dropped. There's an episode where at the end, she's not in the episode until the end. She's at the buffet, and I'm like, why did you pay her to come in? Like, I don't understand. It was such a big deal, and they were not able to kind of pull that through the other episodes. So I want to see the consistency that for me they showed in season 1 and season 2 with the arcs. I just want more cohesion with that.
Yeah. And Gab, what about you? I mean, there are 15 episodes. You've been on a lot of shows in their final seasons, and you always want to stick the landing. That's so important. What do you hope, and what do you think? What are your expectations?
I want exactly what Kay and Zazie want. I want them to create the arcs that they did before that made it successful, that allows the characters to develop and the relationships to develop and the storyline to progress in kind of a more measured manner. But I don't want them to overcorrect. I want some of these fun episodes. I want like I was saying, the fun, the optimism, the goofiness, to remain. But I think this season was just about not quite finding that balance. And it sounds like they kind of know they didn't,
Yeah.
and that they're going to find it. And look, it's the hardest thing to do in television, especially when you have a show like this where you can really just wake up in the morning and do whatever you want. It's not like a show where like Law and Order, where you're like, well, this is pretty much what we're doing every week. So that's what I'm hoping. It's a blessing and a curse sometimes when you know that you are going to end, because you can see the end and you know what it is, so you can
I
write
have
to it.
I have never had that.
I've had it a few times.
I've never had it. It's always like, well, it's over.
Yeah. Well, it puts a lot of pressure on you though too, because you're like, holy shit, I got to really
I'd like
make
to
this.
feel it just the one time, just to see what it's like, just so I can compare and contrast.
It is interesting to look at the fact that New Lives and New Civilizations, which was the season finale, was produced before they knew they were getting picked up.
It seems like such a serious finale.
It does. It does. Yeah.
And
and I also I want to just give a shout out, speaking of casting, Melanie Scrofano, who plays Marie Battelle. She's so spectacular. I don't know if anybody's seen Winona Earp, which she's the lead.
Oh, I didn't realize she was the lead of that.
Yeah. And I love her. So I would die for her. She's also in Ready or Not. She's hilarious in that. But I think that was such, and luckily she's Canadian, so that helped. But that's just such a great piece of casting, because she's somebody who I really believed in that part. And she's so great because she can do the physical stuff, she can do the emotional stuff. I just love her. And now I'm sad that she's gone to be the sentinel for the Vesta.
Yeah, that's what happened, right? Okay.
Yes.
So, okay. I have to say, I love doing these episodes. I love doing these episodes because it's kind of, to me, it's like, when the evil Gorn come and destroy everyone on Cestus 3, but then at the end we realize like we have more in common, we need to try and get along. And so I feel like it's so great that we can sort of give the Gorn a voice and speak about, it's terrific. Like I said, we, a lot of listeners, were anxious to hear what you thought of the season. They're big fans of the show, even people who aren't fans of the show. Very interested in hearing your insights because, of course, it's such an elevated, opinion. And, what's fascinating is it does capture the polarization of some of these shows because, of course, we have always, I think, been very simpatico on most things in popular culture. So it's absolutely fascinating that there's such a divide in this particular case, and trying to get to the heart of why that is I think fascinating for me. So all kidding aside, I have so much respect for your opinions, and I get the fact that you love the show and you're passionate about the show, and hearing why and understanding is just it's fascinating, and I'm glad that so many of our listeners have found it fascinating as well, and that they want to hear more. So it was great. And of course, when the season 4 premieres, we'll have to rope everybody back in to talk more about it. So
Like
we won't.
2030, 2035.
Yeah, no, exactly. All right, but we've got 15 episodes left, Mark. We are going to find one that you like. That is our goal.
Good
Just
luck.
one. Just one.
But I will say, and it was interesting because, like, for instance, we were in Des Moines at GalaxyCon Des Moines this weekend, and I had a bunch of people come up to me, and I don't really like to talk about our feelings because, like, again, everyone has the shows that they're passionate about, and you want to respect that. I had so many people come up to me telling me how much they don't like the show, which is surprising because I'm used to people who are all saying, how much they enjoy it, and it's nice to have more episodic Star Trek back, and so it was like we had so many people just saying that they're not who weren't fans of the series, which I found surprising because more often than not, I find most people really enjoy it. So
That might just be Iowa, though.
Yeah.
It could
And
be Iowa.
They just might have been trying to suck up to you.
The home of that too. The home birthplace of Captain Kirk.
Yeah, it might just be Iowa.
So we actually looked to see how far Riverside, Iowa was from where we were in Des Moines. It was 2 hours. I said, I don't need to see Captain Kirk's birthplace that badly.
Yeah.
Then don't they have a statue or something there?
They have a statue.
Yeah.
They have a statue of Captain Kirk.
I would have gone to selfie in front of that statue. I would have.
Oh,
2
yeah.
hours. Mhm.
If it was 20 minutes and not 2 hours, I would have as well. But
All
that
right,
was
next
not-
time you have to do it. You have to
I know.
carve out the time.
But we'll have you back, and I'm sure we'll have you back on the show before 2047 when the show comes back. But I don't know if it's going to be that long because honestly, they finished shooting the fourth season, so they're in post
Oh,
now.
have they finished? I knew they had finished.
Oh
writing. I
yeah,
didn't know they'd finished
no,
shooting.
they
Okay.
finished shooting the fourth season this summer. They're writing the fifth season now, all 5
But then
episodes
it takes
of it.
them 2 years to do the effects, right?
Yeah, to do post on it and everything. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it'll be back. And I mean, but look, of course, this is something that's endemic to all of streaming. These big shows with their 8-episode orders that take years between. It's amazing anyone comes back for another season of any of these shows.
I come
that
back and I spend the first 4 episodes having no idea who anybody is.
Yeah, you have to go on like Wikipedia and like go
It's
through
ridiculous.
like all the old episodes. I did that with Wednesday, which I just finished, and again my husband watched it with me, and he was like, "Oh, yeah, this is kind of a cute show. I'll watch this again." I'm like, "Great!" In 2040, when it comes
Yeah.
out.
The worst thing is when they don't have a recap. And it's
Yeah.
like it's been
They
3
should
years since the
basically-
show was on.
They should have to. They should have to all do an episode recap.
Yeah.
I will
Um,
say, Star Trek: Strange New World is pretty good about that. They did
Yeah.
like before the finale, they recapped all the way back to I think like a Discovery episode when they
Yeah.
Pike first talked about knowing his future. They really like, okay, guys, this is what you need to pay attention to.
I remember when The Diplomat season 2 premiered on Netflix. It's a show I love.
Yep,
and
love it.
there was no recap, and I
Nope.
think we spent the first half hour trying to figure out what the hell happened 3 years ago when
Yes.
the show debuted.
Yes,
was like-
I did too. Yeah.
Yep.
Same thing with Squid Game, except I realized they actually had a whole half hour recap, but it didn't come up automatically. You had to actually, so like same thing with Squid Game. I'm like, what happened in Squid Game? There were squids, there was calamari. I don't know what this was about. I just remember I liked it, but I don't know what
You're
happened.
supposed to watch the whole last season again before you watch the new season.
That may be why.
Absolutely friggin' not.
I just don't know how to do that
No.
and live my life. I just don't
I'm
know
not
how to do
watching something twice.
it. No.
Unless it's Slow Horses.
Oh,
I
when is
watched
that?
it like
Soon.
2 weeks. So, well,
Yeah.
by the time this airs, it'll probably have debuted on Apple, which will be great. I can't wait for that. And the return of For All Mankind, and so many great shows that are coming up, coming back after long hiatuses. It's just nuts. I mean, remember when you would complain because you only
the
got like
summer.
6 weeks off, right? It's like,
Yeah.
oh, summer's over already. We're back. And it's like, and now it's like, well, it's been 3 years. Oh, they actually want me to come back. I just got
Oh,
hired.
and then they
on
don't
their-
even tell you. Just all of a sudden, the show's on whatever service it's on. You're like, oh, look at that.
Yeah, I was back.
Zazie's thinking, I wish I had these problems. Anyway, well, I'm so seriously, and all kidding aside, and despite all my faces and everything, I'm really appreciative for you guys being here and talking about the show that you like so much. And again, thank you, Zazie Sales, KAY REINDL, and Gabrielle Stanton. Look forward to having you back, and stay tuned because I'll be back with some closing thoughts with the other Treksperts, DAREN DOCHTERMAN and Ashley Miller, who I'm sure will be less kind. Thank you. Hey, and we're back with a few closing thoughts.
Well, I'm convinced. Wait. Sorry.
I'm convinced I was wrong all the time.
Yeah, it's interesting because everybody has a different, I guess, idea of what Star Trek is.
Now, look, I am not. I don't reflexively want to dislike things called Star Trek. In fact, it's quite the opposite. I would love to be a test pattern Trekkie. And whatever issues I have with Strange New Worlds, I definitely had more about other new Star Trek entries. But also, I'm gonna be honest, man. Like I wear my heart on my sleeve as far as like thinking that Enterprise was a snooze fest and not loving Voyager very much at all, with the exception of like, I think some truly outstanding episodes that surprised me and delighted me. So it's not like, living in a state of it's possible to love Star Trek and not love all expressions
Yes.
of Star Trek, and at least though respect the attempt at telling Star Trek stories and
Well-
try to find the things that are good, while going like, this is the thing I just find completely unappealing.
So many people give the position of Idic as just lip service, and we try not to do that. We try to actually live that feeling and send it forward, and no matter how difficult it may be. But this is one of those instances. Infinite diversity.
I think it would be a lot easier to accept if these shows were set after, if they weren't attempting to co-opt, a piece of our action, by saying, oh, this
None of that
is now, and that's why the canon thing, people are like, well, what do you care about fictional canon? We said this before, because part of why Star Trek means so much is because it is this future history, and that it tries, yes, of course, Earth Space Probe Agency became Starfleet. Yeah. That's because they were creating it. It was at the beginning, right? It was evolving. But there is a method to the madness. There's an attempt to tell that's why you can have a 2-volume, 1,000+ encyclopedia that holds up, because there is a future history that is well-reasoned and logical. But I think so now
for the greater part of 50 years, people tried to make it work.
Yeah. And that's, I think, part of where the anger comes from, or the this disappointment, the frustration, that's a much better word, comes from this idea of saying it's canon while not respecting the canon and expecting this stuff to just, production values have just changed. Of course their quarters are bigger, or of course it's much more advanced. Of course they have the holodeck, or of course they have this or that. And I think it's frustrating for people who grew up taking, what I guess is the golden age of Star Trek very seriously, to then have it, people tossing themselves, into a pretzel, twisting themselves into a pretzel to try and make sense of it all when it doesn't make any sense.
Right. Well, thank God for Mike McMahon, who basically, like, categorically, turned that entire corner of the universe into an alternate universe, and I'm pretty sure destroyed it. But that's neither here nor there.
But I will say, look, they're very talented people who are working very hard to make the show, and it may not be our,
including friends.
Star Trek. No, absolutely, and there's no one there who's phoning it in, or who doesn't care. That would be unfortunate. But it's just a difference of opinion on how we all see this franchise.
For sure.
So.
Everybody's entitled to an opinion.
And they all have a-holes.
And if you want to hear our opinions, you don't want to miss the upcoming Inglorious Treksperts live tour as it continues throughout the rest of the year. Des Moines, not Des Moines, we were there already. St. Louis, October 10th to October 12th. Milwaukee, November 7th to the 9th. Columbus, December 5th to the 7th. And if you have tickets, you get to see Darren on the Star Trek cruise, February 20th to 27th. If you don't have tickets, apparently you're out of luck. Apparently they're sold out. So you can wave to him from the pier. You can go to the pier and wave. It'll be like Titanic.
You have to watch the live
waves.
YouTube stream.
Be like the Love Boat.
There's no live.
Love Boat.
They wave as the Pacific Princess goes out to sea. But you should get a bottle of Dom Perignon and hit it on the bow of the ship. Or
with my luck, I'd break the ship.
Yeah, right. You'd hit with the bottle, and then the ship would just shatter. That's what you want to see.
You broke your little ship.
Yes.
Yeah. So that'll be fun. A lot of great people. It should be a lot of fun. I'm sure Darren's gonna have a great time. And when he gets back, he promised to fill us in on all his adventures at sea.
I'm gonna be dancing with Shatner.
He's gonna be dancing with Bill. Yeah, because Bill's gonna be on the cruise for the 60th anniversary.
That's
you can give him a tour of the boat.
That's right.
A ship's captain can marry people. Maybe you want to get married on that. Maybe you'll meet the love of your life on that cruise.
Maybe I'll marry Shatner. No. This is the control room on the ship. And this is where we would look at the screen and find out what's happening.
What's happening? What's happening now? She died from what's happening. Trudy died from what's happening.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
That's sad.
Was her name Trudy? No.
No. It wasn't. I don't remember.
But she's dead anyway.
I don't remember. I don't remember a lot these days, so it's amazing that I'm actually on the show and can remember anything. But I do. I've been watching a lot of Pluto. Watching a lot of.
Hi, Pluto. Hey, boy.
Not that kind of Pluto.
I got to tell you, and it seems like every time we turn on the Star Trek movie channel, Into Darkness is on. It's very frustrating.
Wow. Every time I turn on the Star Trek movie channel, motion pictures on.
Oh,
So I
see, that's
immediately
good.
turn it off.
Oh, but you can't possibly watch it again.
Can't take it anymore.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it was. I always enjoy just seeing what's going to be on, and obviously playing the old guessing game. Like, I can name this episode in 3 frames. Yeah, exactly.
And you beat your son at the game.
I do. The only time he beats me is on Voyager episodes.
Oh well,
I'm
yeah,
not as
it's
well
not a
versed.
skill I'd want to have either.
Yeah.
But Deep Space Nine and the original series and Next Gen, I'm still the champion.
Well, thank God for that.
We are the champions. I mean, I got to keep my title as a Trexpert.
Yeah.
I don't want to no longer be an Inglorious Trexpert, become an honorary Trexpert.
You don't want to
a
lose
Trexpert
your
emeritus.
reputation as a miracle worker.
I do not. This is true. So anyway, well, this is it, guys. This is the end of the 7th season, and that means only one thing: next season.
8th season.
The 8th season is coming next week.
Next week, we finally run out of things to talk about Star Trek.
What are we? So we're changing the topic of the show, or we're going to discuss other things?
Yeah, it's the Inglorious Nothing Spurts.
Well,
Inglorious
sometimes I think the
Nutspurts.
show is more
Wait,
like
no,
a Seinfeld
that's-
episode than anything else, which is us talking about nothing.
Who are these people?
What are they doing on this ship? I don't
What is the
understand.
deal with Star Trek?
Jerry, I have an idea.
Jason Alexander is a huge Star Trek fan.
He is. Maybe on there. We should bring on some big guests in the 8th season.
Yeah, we should.
Big guests. Like we should.
Do a crazy lineup.
We'll bring in for the
I
8th,
bet we
60th
could get
anniversary.
Jason to come on the show.
Yeah, you
Ben
think?
Stiller and
Yeah, everybody.
Find everybody
We-
who's
we-
named their production company after something from Star Trek.
We got to have Kevin Feige back to talk about Star Trek 5.
Yeah.
I know him and Asbel want to come back, and Terry. So
I'm sure they do.
we'd love to have him. So
Yeah.
that'd be fun. Okay, Inglorious Treksperts is a production of the Treksperts Podcast Network. Mark Altman, Darren Doctorman, Ashley Miller, our executive producers. Brian Mix and Peter Holmstrom, our producers. Mark Rivera is our audio sound mixer. John Carney is our social media manager. And Inglorious Treksperts, copyright 2025 by the Treksperts Plus. Inglorious Treksperts is available wherever you listen to podcasts and on video via Spotify and now on YouTube. You can review Inglorious Treksperts wherever you listen. Share your thoughts with us on your favorite social media platform or via email at trekspertsplus@gmail.com or on the Inglorious Treksperts Discord channel for continued exciting freewheeling conversations. Oh, yeah. Check it out. The link is in the show notes. And on that note, we're going to late night radio. It's the Soul Hour. We're stealing
Welcome
souls.
to Hour 25.
Hour 25. That's right. With your host, J. Michael Straczynski. Who's going to talk to you about how they stole Babylon 5 and turned it into Deep Space Nine.
Only they gave it Foley.
Man, Bruce Boxleitner sure likes that. We should do it's Treksperts After Dark. Here we are.
Here with Bruce Boxleitner.
Treksperts After Mark is when I resign, when I step down. There could be some changes in the show.
Treksperts after.
But this is your host, Darren Doctorman, Ashley Edward Miller, Mark A. Altman, and Truck Turner. Oh my God, we should show that in Vegas. Truck
We're
Turner.
not going to be able to
It
do
would
that.
blow people's minds. The show would blow people's minds. Talking about Treksperts After Dark.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay, well, anyway, we're going to stop talking like this now.
What are you doing with Lieutenant Uhura?
You sound like Orson Welles.
Oh, that's what he said.
Uhura.
He said Lieutenant Uhura.
Uhura. Is she Irish?
You can't correct Orson Welles.
Now, Cheryl Nichols is Lieutenant Uhura.
Who else
O'Hara.
did he get wrong?
He
in
didn't
that?
get any wrong. He
Gotta
said
love that.
versus Combata is Lieutenant Ilea.
By the way, did you see the commercial they did? Trek here. Paramount Plus did a commercial about Trek. Get your Trek here, or like and it was like a montage
get
of
your Star Trek
yeah,
here.
it was a montage of like all the Star Treks because they're all at Paramount Plus. I quibble with the choice of clips. Plus, I don't know if I would have picked a clip with Stephen Collins these days. Just saying. I mean, given all the great images, the great stuff you could pull from Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
Well, just wait till Kevin Spacey guest stars on
On Starfleet Academy. Look, guess who we got?
Jesus.
Okay, we'll be back with an all-new Treksperts After Dark coming up next. You're gonna do that at the conventions. It's Treksperts After Dark with your hosts. It's Dapper Darren. It's Astute Ashley. Marvelous Mark. We're just hanging out here, being cool. Because
Welcome
we're cool
to the
because we like.
magnificent Treksperts apartment.
You sound like Alex. because we dig Star Trek. We dig Star Trek a lot here.
We dig it the most.
We know it's cool. We're no test pattern Trekkies. We don't like the Strange New Worlds that much. We like the
We
old
don't like
stuff.
most of stuff.
We like strange old worlds.
Yeah, because but you must be old because you like the old stuff. It's like, yeah, because we really like the old whiskey and the old bourbon.
That's right.
It's like it's supposed to
Barrel aged.
The old stuff is good. New stuff not so good. You want
Ooh,
like a fine
we'll be right
wine. Okay, so there's only one last thing to say. Keep on tracking ingloriously, of course.